So Dr. Tsung is a NASA flight surgeon, triple boarded ER critical care aerospace physician, and the founder of Productivity MD. After years of operating in high stakes environments, from emergency rooms to space missions, she discovered that the most high performers don't lack success, they lack true freedom. What looks like control and achievement is often a more comfortable prison. Her breakthrough came during a 1.5 year sabbatical from NASA, where she developed the 5 stages of time freedom, a proven framework to help leaders move from time prisoner to time transcender. Disclaimer: any of the guidance offered by the podcast host, myself, or the podcast guests is our own guidance. We are not liable for any of the actions the podcast listener decides to do. Welcome to the show today, and glad to have you on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Johnny. Really appreciate your invitation. Really honored to be here. Of course, for the audience, your time, energy, presence of actually listening to this. So thank you.
Amazing. No, so I'm excited to talk about time, because I know I've definitely struggled with it in my life of like finding the right things, and I know it's a problem. I wish I had more time in the day. How do I make it work? And so fascinating to see where we dive down today. So yeah, I'd love to first of all know what the difference is for you between like success and freedom.
Yeah, it can change in like a snap of a finger, actually. So when in the 5 stages of time freedom, when you feel free, one of the definition actually is that you can actually look at a thing that you need to do that's on your to-do list or checklist, something you need to do for your business or household, but you have no emotions to it, attached to it. You don't see that there's a thing to do and that you're frustrated, you're overwhelmed, you're stressed. You just see it as it is and it will be done at this time. It sounds like, I don't know how it sounds to you, you can let me know, but I find that most people who are successful actually do not have that freedom. When they see things that they need to do to progress, for growth, for success, they attach a negative meaning, they attach the gap to it, and actually they don't feel free.
Oh wow, interesting. So yeah, like freedom's something that a lot of people are like seeking, that you found.
It's an emotional state, I would say. So freedom feels like it's peaceful, you're in flow, you're present. As you're going through all of the meetings throughout the day, maybe you're talking to clients, maybe you're giving a presentation, maybe you're doing a podcast, or maybe you're hanging out with your spouse, seeing patients in my case. But it's an emotional, even though I chose to do it, sometimes I can have a pressure to optimize. I can say yes a lot and actually don't feel free. I feel rushed and stressed. Versus true freedom is even as I'm doing these things for my business, for my growth, I don't have this pressure to optimize. And I feel like I'm in peace, I'm in flow, everything is as is, and there's no rush in anything. So that's freedom.
And I feel like there's some people who seem to be like in flow a lot more, and then some people really kind of like struggling for that time and always under like time pressure. What do you think? Like, how do you think people get to that like level of freedom? Is it from like a lot of training, or is it just something natural, you think?
Yeah, I think this might be, I will say, I guess the short answer to that, I can have a longer or short, but it does require some training. But I will say though, you will be in those states in one day, if that makes sense. You will feel successful, but without pressure to optimize. And then the next moment you could turn yourself being in flow and you stop doing the inner critic, stop optimizing, you get yourself in flow state, in a flow block for 60 to 90 minutes. And it's effortless, it's selfless, it's timeless. So what I'm saying is it will require some habits, and which is what I go over, flow habits and flow interventions to get you more living in flow. But it's not like if you trained a long time, years and years and years, you're not going to drop back into that state. I was in that state just this morning, the pressure to optimize and looking at the gap and the stress state. So I was in that just this morning.
I'd imagine, but yeah, with all the responsibility, the roles you play as well, and the duties you're doing in the world, yeah, there may be some time for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So I think, this might be a good time for it might make more sense if I go through the 5 stages of time freedom,
Yeah,
and then you
love
can
to.
see like maybe where you stand in the 5 stages. And then just so you know that you can be all 5 stages in one day. So I want you to take note of the percentage that you're spending in these stages most of the day. And then for some people, there could be a difference between working days and non-working days too, just so you know. So the first stage, you can take note yourself, I'll ask you for your percentage. The first stage is the time prisoner. And that's when you're saying the one-liners, I don't have time. You wake up, you check your inbox, your messages, maybe social media, your phone's by your bed. So you're reacting to everybody else's demands, except for moving the needle. You're not doing anything that moves the needle on yourself, for yourself. You're firefighting, you're in max sympathetic mode, fight or flight response, basically, and just reacting, nothing intentional. So when I'm in the ER, when the ambulances are piling up, that's basically a time prisoner. So in stage 2 is a time manager. That's when you're using to-do lists, checklists, calendar. You know your goals, you might know your life vision, you might know your massive transformative purpose, but you haven't used any leverage. So you haven't hired anybody, you haven't done any automations. You're doing everything yourself, and even the things that are not your zone of genius that you don't like to do, but you don't delegate it out, either due to wanting more control or in trust issues. And so your one-liner is, I'm productive, but I'm so tired. So when I'm in the ER, I'm mostly a time manager and time prisoner, just those 2 stages. And then the third stage is the time creator. A time creator starts using leverage. And so you start hiring people. You may use AI, you automate things, you have systems and processes, and you ruthlessly eliminate things that doesn't, align with your value. And you have no problem delegating. You do things that are in your zone of genius, and that fills you up. And so you start freeing up all those white spaces on your calendar. So whenever a new opportunity comes that looks good, so you say yes to it, because you never know if you like it unless you say yes and you try it out. And so when I'm still on the sabbatical, actually. We leave for Greece in 2 weeks, actually, for 3 months. But when 2 months into the sabbatical, I don't have any more meetings at NASA anymore. And I started saying yes to a lot of collaborations, podcasts, etc. And then after, it was like laying in bed at 1 a.m. after ER shift, and I was still feeling so stressed because each yes you say will have like 20 more open loops afterwards. And so there were a lot of open loops unclosed in my head, and I was still stressed, even though I had full control of doing it, my schedule, working when I want, spending time with my kids when I want. I could work out when I wanted. I had the control, but really I didn't feel free. I had the success. I had the fake time freedom is what I call it. It's most people's definition of time freedom, but I didn't feel free. So the one-liner for that is, I don't have time. I'm sorry, I can make the time. That was always like my motto. Anything I want to do, I can make the time. So you have this pressure to optimize. Any inefficiencies will drive you crazy. You don't like waiting. If people delay you in any way, you get really annoyed, and you see the gap and the lack and everything around you, how things could be better. And so your state is just this constant pressure to optimize the white spaces of your time on your calendar. If you don't fill it up with something productive, you don't feel like either you're living your life's true purpose or just like you're lazy. I'm going to stop there and see if you have questions before we go on the next 2 stages.
I love that. So sounds like they're more kind of empowering as you're going through them. So you've got like the time prisoner, the time manager, and then the time creator. I can see a lot of us, including myself, being in that time manager of like planning and then blocking stuff out and trying to be productive and stuff like that. I guess how in your view does someone go from the time manager to the time creator? Someone might be thinking, yeah, I know what my zone of genius isn't and I know what it is, right, for example. And then they're like, it makes sense to hire people and get them to work on these things, but I just don't have the resources to get people in and do that. So actually, I'm going to find it difficult to get to time creator because, yeah, I can't hire a team yet. I just wondered if you had any guidance for that kind of individual.
Yeah, for sure. I think initially the initial outsourcing might be something really simple. Well, the initial thing is probably eliminating. So like truly, do you really have the 5 goals or do you have 10 goals for the year? So I think that's the biggest thing, to go from time manager, and then time creator is like really ruthless in terms of like their non-negotiables. And so you need to eliminate first, making sure this is aligned with your true purpose, your life vision. And then after that, then you delegate out as little as possible. Very, very, I guess the most cost-effective example is people paying $20 a month for ChatGPT or any sort of AI to kind of, that's a form of automation or maybe a delegation. You're delegating your research to AI. It's $20 a month.
Yeah, that's smart.
So yeah, that's like hiring your first assistant for $20 a month.
Yeah, it's smart. Yeah, that's it's a bargain. ChatGPT and
Yeah.
Claude and all those ones just to like help you with those words and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Claude
Yeah.
with my podcasting, does wonders. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. The elimination I thought was a really good point that you made because it's like what comes to my mind is when a few years ago when I was like in this coaching starting sort of program, a lot of people be like, okay, right, design the logo, do this, do that, and then like the guy was like, just get out there and start having conversations with people about what you're doing,
Yeah.
yeah, eliminating. So I really
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, we often like in our head makes up these sequences of events that must happen before you get to an outcome. But actually, why don't we just jump to the one that's like the 80/20 that's going to get you your clients or whatever the outcome you want. So instead of like this big giant thing, typically I would ask the mentors or whoever has experience, like, what is that one thing I need to do next? Just what you got. Yeah, the one-on-one conversation, which is very similar to what I got. Just go out there and have conversations too. You don't need a website, you don't need anything, just go out and talk to people. So, and then I'll go back to the fourth and fifth stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we were talking about as a time creator, you really know you're a master at leverage, people process, you upgrade your skills of proficiency. And so you have this pressure to optimize. Now, the fourth stage is the time liberator. Whenever a new opportunity comes, you say, will this multiply or drain my energy? So time is no longer the metric. Your energy is your capital. And typically everything is a no unless it's a hell yes. So everything that you do is completely aligned with your true value and purpose. You love white spaces on your calendar. So one of the big difference between 3 and 4 is what I talked about before. You can see something as is, not worse than it is. You see that there's this podcast you have to edit or social media you need to post, but you instead of feeling behind, you just see it like, okay, I will post it next week. I didn't get to do it this week, so it will be done next week. Okay, done. Or if there's something you needed to do for your kids, for your spouse, something you didn't plan yet, it's more like, okay, it'll be done tomorrow, or I will set tomorrow at 4 p.m. to do this, and that's it. That's the end of story. And so you purposely also build in like 3-4 hours of white space, or maybe a full day of white space, and you only say yes probably to 2 big I guess projects or 2 big goals for the quarter, and that's it. 2 big business goals for the quarter, and that's it. Nothing else. And so the difference is that the emotional state is calm, it's present, you're in flow. Now, the fifth stage, the last stage, is
Sorry,
called
what's the fourth one called?
time liberator. You're liberated from you're liberated from using time as the metric. So you use your energy as the metric. You say yes to things that multiplies your energy. If anything drains your energy, it's an automatic no.
Oh, great.
So
No, it made sense. Didn't quite catch the name, so I love that.
yeah. And then the last stage is the fifth stage is the time transcender. And at this stage, you say all there is this moment now, that there's no past, there's no future. You're just fully focused on the present. And this is the flow state as well that we talk about. Either you're in flow and producing 5x output, or you're in flow state with your spouse, your loved ones, with their kids. You're fully present. Maybe you're in group flow with the people you work with. Maybe you're in group flow with, like, if you're giving a presentation, we're in group flow right now in a way. Time is disappearing unless you check. And the reason why this stage is so important, and we want to live in this stage as much as possible, is because at the end of our life, in our deathbed, the memories we'll remember are actually going to be timeless. So it's not usually the times where you're checking your watch or checking your meetings. Every time you check the time, you're actually stressed. You're not enjoying the present anymore. You're looking at the past or the future. So the fifth stage is the flow state. We want to be as much as possible, to be as much timelessness as possible. But the fourth stage is a container for it, because if you're just water flowing, you're gonna not ignore the obligations and the commitments. And so you're in flow maybe an hour to 2 hours, maybe 3 hours at a time. And then the fourth stage is kind of like a container for those flow blocks, is what I call it. I'm going to ask you, I'm curious, do you happen to have an idea of what percentage you feel like you're in different stages?
I brutally honest. I'd say I'm pretty good away from like one. I like to like map out my days and be intentional, having a mixture of podcasting, sales responsibilities, and other consultancy things. So I would say there is the time prisoner, so maybe like, I don't know, 10%, maybe 15% sort of maximum. I would say time manager, if I was brutally honest, at least 35%, maybe 40. So
Mm-hmm.
probably the strongest.
Because of a delegation or because not enough elimination?
There's probably the elimination and probably both. The
Mm-hmm.
elimination. I do eliminate quite a lot, but there's more elimination and yeah, the
Okay, got
delegation
it.
to AI.
Okay.
I like it, but use more of it. The time creator again. I'd love to say I'll do more of the top ones, but time creator probably like what have we got left? About maybe
50%
20%.
left.
Yeah, so maybe 25-30% in that one, and then
Okay.
the other two probably 10% between maybe 15 and 10 and 10. I'd say there are times when I'm in the only now sort of moment.
Got it. You're probably in more flow state than you think, though. I
Mm,
think most people are in more flow than they think. So if you're
mm,
creating, if you're really focused, you're like in flow. So, sometimes a lot of people can build 2 to 3 to 4 hours of flow in a day. So do you think maybe I'll put you at 25% time creator, maybe 10% time liberator, and then I'll put you 15% time transcender when you're in flow, think?
yeah, yeah,
Creating and things like that.
yeah,
Okay. So you're saying that most of your time, though, you're actually operating mostly as a time manager and time creator, correct? But mostly time manager.
yeah. I would say that's accurate.
Okay. Okay. And what I can do is kind of go through very quick steps depending on where you are. What's the next action truly? It'll take a little bit more time to dive in deep on like every single thing, but I'll say like one or two things to ascend to the stages, if
Yeah,
that works.
yeah,
Okay. So for a time prisoner, it's really about first is like not caring about what other people think of you because they tend to react quickly to other people's requests because they're afraid of what other people think. So it's really number one, getting into the mindset that you serve yourself first. The rest can wait. There's rarely any emergencies that can't wait 4 hours or 3 hours.
yeah.
And then I would say the number two thing for a time prisoner is put their phone away outside in the kitchen when they sleep. That's probably the biggest thing. And then when they finish work, that they need to put their laptop in away and not bring it down, bring it near them to the bedroom
Yeah.
or like the living area. That would be the biggest thing as a time prisoner. Does that apply to you as a time prisoner, or do you have any other questions regarding that stage?
No, I think those are those good ones. I kind of like to follow my own agenda, but of course there are moments where I do react to people, but not my whole life. So yeah, and I'll say the phone thing, always working on. I delete things from my phone so I don't get caught on them as well. So yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, one quick thing on the phone is change your phone to grayscale. So make your phone black and white, taking away all the badges, all the notifications. So it's less of dopamine stimulus for you.
Yeah, I don't have notifications generally, so that's good.
Uh,
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And then as a time manager, once you moved up as a time manager, then really the biggest thing is looking at anything you're doing that's not your zone of genius and then start delegating that out. So the most cost-effective way might be using AI automations of the processes versus hiring somebody, but also looking at your earning potential, earning hourly rate, and comparing that to hiring household help like laundry, chef, etc., things like that. So, but in your case, it's really about elimination first. Is that correct?
Yes, I would say that's
Okay. Yeah, so another thing with that is, for people who are listening, it's important to create a life vision. And it's important in any stage actually. But by the time you're in 3, 4, 5, you have a life vision, MTP. But have you heard of like massive transformative purpose or life vision when you're 85, 95 years old?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, okay. So for those of you guys, the audience who doesn't have it, then essentially you want to set 3 MTPs that you can never check off or complete. That's always a constant pursuit for you. And then a life vision is basically what you would love to do, spending your time with how you would like to feel when you're 85, 95 years old with amazing mental and physical capacity. And once you have that, then you will be able to eliminate ruthlessly what doesn't serve your MTP or your life vision. So, for example, one of my MTP is living in a state with compassion, courage, and playfulness with myself, with my kids, and anything that pulls me from that, I will be saying no to. So, I don't know in terms of your case, in terms of elimination and the MTPs that you have, I don't know if that might help for the elimination portion.
Yeah, I think I've got the vision and things like that. It's just, sometimes adding like too many modalities. It's like the men's group coaching, like my sales coaching, all these kind of things. So it's they do line up, but it's just like just fining down. So I'm glad we brought that up today. Which are the real key ones, definitely.
Yeah, the real key ones actually is the 80/20, or perhaps sometimes what I've seen is like we have this pressure to optimize the frequency of things, perhaps, or sometimes like I want to do 2 podcasts a month. Well, what do I have to do for 2 podcasts a month? I can do 1 podcast a month type of thing. So we create this deadline or frequency that I want to do things, and it may not have to be that frequent to allow yourself some white spaces. And then as a time creator, really it's about your emotional state. It's about working on seeing the seeing the gain in things, not putting the internal pressure, being okay, and really focusing on what I call like parasympathetic system, nervous system recovery. So having the rest and digest system activated and to allow yourself white spaces in order to do that. And when you can allow yourself to calm down, like for me, I do sensory deprivation float tank to get myself in the rest and digest state, or maybe like breath work, meditation. That's what a lot of people do. So you stop going in the loop of like constant dopamine, constant production, constant doing, and just being. So do you have any questions regarding that portion, the time creator to time liberator?
No, I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of getting in the inner world workout like I like to do in the morning, like gym and then the meditation and breath work before the day.
Well, actually, that has the timing of when you do it actually matters because when we talk about from, becoming a time transcender, being in flow. So there's a flow cycle. The flow cycle is you struggle 10 to 20 minutes. You're kind of like a little distracted, trying to focus, trying to pull the things that you want to do. Then you get to the peak, there's a release very quickly, and then you're flowing downhill with the momentum. And you don't actually know you're in flow state until you're out of flow. And then when you're out of flow, usually it's about 90 minutes or so, 60 to 90 minutes. At the end, there's a recovery period before the next flow block. So when you talk about recovery periods, it's important to stick it at the end of each flow block. So a lot of people will just like go really hard, focus for 3-4 hours, and then they'll do their recovery either like before they go really hard or after. But it's actually like what I call an ultradian rhythm. That's what you want to do. An ultradian rhythm throughout the day is 60 to 90 minutes, kind of like your sleep cycle. So you're doing like work sprints or flow block sprints and recovery, flow block sprints, recovery, flow block sprints, recovery. So typically I schedule about 2 to 3 flow blocks a day, but I tack on recovery after.
Oh, wow.
And it depends on your chronotype too. I don't know if you're familiar with chronotype. Yeah. So depending on your chronotype, you guys can Google it, whoever's listening to this, but your peak zone will either be from 5 to 9 a.m., 8 to 11 a.m., or 4 to 9 p.m. if you're an owl. So you want to stick the 60 to 90 minute flow blocks within your peak zone. And what you want to do is, has to do with like living in more in flow. You typically want to wake up. If you're in your peak zone, just go to work right away, sit down and flow for an hour to 2. Then you do your breath work or meditation or any journaling, but a very short time. And then you're going to sprint for another flow block for 60 to 90 minutes or 2 hours. And then maybe a longer break. And I put my workout at the end, typically for an hour and a half after 2 flow blocks. Any questions regarding that?
No, makes sense. I think I'm the 8 till 11 a.m. block, but I can't remember what the type was called. But yeah, I definitely get that one.
Yeah, the third bird. You're the third bird.
That's it.
So yeah. So essentially that's it. Those are like a very simple actions. There's more things that go into how to get into flow easier once you have the flow blocks scheduled, but by recognizing your chronotype, knowing your flow blocks, like how to schedule it within your chronotype peak zone, that's the first start.
That's awesome. No, makes sense so far.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Do you feel like in terms of your audience, what stage do you feel like the people you've come across, what stage do you feel like a lot of people are in currently?
There's sort of, I know you've shared, like, I'm not immune from like time prison. I feel like quite a lot of people can be caught there. It's like very reactive to the world. Sometimes we have to be, there's a lot going on. And then the time manager, typically sort of like those levels are very sort of like common. But of course, I believe we all at some point are in all five levels. But yeah, typically the first two are quite common. Say for me, it
Mm.
goes between two and three quite a lot.
Okay. Yeah. And that's what I usually see too in my clients or the people I talk to. A lot of times they're stuck in one and two. And once they reach three, actually it's a time when they come for the one-on-one advisory because it's when they reach mostly three is when they realize that this is all there is and this doesn't feel free and there must be something more and what else can I do? And because by then it's not the tactics and the mechanics anymore and the logistics. By then it's like your own inner work, which is a lot what you talk about.
I love that. So, yeah, and it sounds like, um, yeah, you've had to do a lot of work to sort of like pull the system together. How did you pull this system together?
The five stages, how did it
Yeah,
come about? I
yeah.
think, I've learned, I trained with the Flow Research Collective on performance neuroscience for 8 months with Rhiannon Collar and Stephen Doris. So I learned all of the flow habits, flow tactics already on how to do this. But in my head, I didn't come up with the gradation or ascension of things until I myself reached the time creator.
Mm.
Because I've been through the time prisoner, I've been through the time manager, I became a time creator. And I will say, when I was at NASA, I had a time liberator calendar and schedule. I realized when I went on sabbatical that my mindset was stuck as a time creator, if that makes sense. Hmm.
Yeah, so I'll just really back that. So, like, the time creator is, yeah, you're like trying to create time, but emotionally you were back in the, okay, but emotionally you were back in the time creator.
I was pressured to optimize. Yeah. I had my workouts 3 times a week, weightlifting 3 times a week. I had no work on the weekends. I had my kids' time 4 to 5 hours a day. I always like see them in the morning. I see them at night. And we had date nights weekly. And I worked whenever, I wanted during this block. And so it was like perfectly in line with my MTP and my purpose in a way, in my life vision. But my mindset, my emotional state, I realized was stuck as a time creator. Like it didn't feel free because I had this pressure to optimize, to do more things, to juggle things around my calendar, to move things when things come at my way. I'm like, I can do that. Let me see how I can make the time.
I want to go back into like the flow state in your best time and an individual's best time to optimize. I know you touched on like chronotypes, but how can someone really start to understand what's the best time for them?
Oh, it's very easy actually. So just think about the time when you have no caffeine, no blue light, like you're not Netflixing, no alarm, no obligations the following morning. When would you ideally go to bed and wake up? And then you take the midpoint of that. And depending on what the midpoint is, that is your chronotype. So, for example, if you go to bed at 10 p.m., wake up at 6 a.m., the midpoint of your sleep is 2 a.m. And so your chronotype is a lark because it's before 3:30 a.m. If it's before 3:30 a.m., you're a lark. And so your peak zone is between 5 to 9. And also, you have a low energy state, a trough state is usually between 1 to 5 or 12 to 5. So what that means is that if you're scheduling all of your deep work as a lark, if you're scheduling all of your deep, and also third bird tour too, in the afternoon, you're going to be 5x slower. So all of your deep work needs to be in your peak zone and that most of your recovery stuff, the errands, the life maintenance stuff needs to be in your trough zone. So
I know for me, I like the stuff in the morning, but it's like anything reactive, meetings, conversations can be in the afternoon because I'm not mentally focused in an afternoon. I'm a little bit better in the evening, but in the afternoon, I'm shocking.
yes. Yeah, you're in your trough zone. We're both in our trough zone right now, but it's okay because like we can handle it. This is like a conversations back and forth. But if I'm like trying to like, present slides or reading an article, I'm gonna be slower. And then you're a third bird. If you're midpoint, it's between 3:30 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. That means your peak zone is usually around 8 to 11, maybe 8 to 12. You can extend your peak zone if you fast or if you eat like a flow meal, but better if you just fast in the morning. But you basically don't want your glucose going up and down, up and down. And people want to check their glucose. You can wear a continuous glucose monitor. It's available on Amazon. It's called the Stelo, Stelo. I don't have financial relationships, but I wore the Dexcom for 2, 3 years. and I knew what food would drop my energy and my productivity. So that is an important metric if you wanted to track it. And then if your midpoint's after 5:30 a.m., then you're an owl. If you're an owl, your peak zone is between 4 to 9 p.m. So what you would do, you would actually wake up, you would serve other people, you can do your recovery, you can do your meditation, journaling. But when everybody else goes home, you focus 4 to 9. The hardest part for now is if they have a corporate job or if they have kids.
Yeah, corporate job wants you that 9 to 5, and you're just struggling.
So yeah, and their trough, for as an owl, your trough is in the morning. So you don't want to schedule. I mean, you don't want to schedule if you can help it. Schedule all of your deep creative work between 4 to 9, and not when you and allow. I think the biggest thing for owls, if you have the capability to do it, allow yourself to sleep till 10 to 11.
Yeah, that's very cool now. Oh, amazing. And like so much gold here. I love going through the time framework as well. I know that's going to serve many people out there listening, and they can use it for themselves. I know you're offering a ton of service and resources. So as we kind of wrap up here, I'd love to know, where can the listener find you to reach out? And is there maybe a final point you would like to leave us with today?
Yeah, I think, the final point is whoever is listening to this, no matter what stage you identify yourself in, it's okay to be in that stage, because I myself am in all 5 stages sometimes in one day. The target maybe is that you want to be 50%, as much as possible, 50% in 4th or 5th stage. If you can. That is the target. Or at least like minimize what you spend in the first 2 stages, and mostly 3 and 4, 5 if you can. Okay, that's the target. But no matter what stage you're in, know that it is okay. And I would say the biggest mindset shift is truly like, it's about asking, if I can summarize like all the pain points and the barriers I've seen and all the people I've talked to, is mostly asking for what you want, because life is too short. And I want you guys to think about, if you weren't here tomorrow, what would be your biggest regret? Some people say not spending enough time with kids. Some say not traveling, not giving themselves, not focusing on their health, their sleep, sacrificing their longevity. Some people say they sacrifice their spouse. So I think no matter what stage you guys are in, I want you guys to be in this state where if I asked you, if you're not here tomorrow, then I want you to answer to me that you will have no regrets in how you spend your time. Otherwise, you make that change right now, so you will have no regrets, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and then regarding the question, you can find me at Tsung MD. That's ANNTSUNGMD.com. I have a school group that does have like resources, monthly decision boardrooms on your time and energy. And then also we talk about the 1% framework, where on everything at business, relationships, finance, etc. So, I would say that's the easiest way to start to finding those resources. And of course, the complementary resources are the podcast, where I talk about these tactics that I've learned as well. So, but yeah, thank you, Johnny, for having me on the show. And I talked quite a bit. I actually asked you a bunch of questions. So thank you.
Oh, awesome. No, appreciate you, Anne. So yeah, to grab those links and to grab some more gold from Anne, you can click in the show notes below, where we'll have all those links. A massive thank you, Anne, for providing that and for coming on today once again. So appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, Johnny, for spending the time. I know it takes a lot of work to create a podcast, to edit all that stuff, spending the money. So thank you, Johnny, for your hard work. And of course, for the audience, your presence and your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm in flow a lot of it, so that's good.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
So that concludes our episode for today. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.